The first sign that something was wrong wasn't the moving trucks. It wasn't the luxury cars parked outside the gates. It wasn't the photographs spreading across social media. And it certainly wasn't the gossip. It was the smile on Daniel Hart's face when he looked at the mansion that had never belonged to him. That smile would haunt Evelyn Carter for weeks because it wasn't the smile of a visitor. It wasn't the smile of a guest. It was the smile of a man who believed he had already won. The mansion stood on the highest hill overlooking the city, its towering white columns catching the golden glow of the afternoon sun. From a distance, it looked almost unreal, like something pulled from a dream. Tourists often stopped at the overlook just to take photographs of it. Local residents knew it as Carter Manor, a symbol of success that had become part of the city's identity. But few people knew the story behind it. Few people knew how much pain had been poured into those walls. Every marble floor, every chandelier, every handcrafted staircase, every acre of manicured gardens. None of it had been inherited. None of it had been gifted. Every inch had been earned. For Evelyn, the mansion was more than a home. It was proof. Proof that hardship did not have to determine destiny. Proof that betrayal did not have to become defeat. Proof that a little girl who once slept in a tiny apartment with a leaking roof could someday build an empire. At 48 years old, Evelyn was admired by many and envied by even more. Her success story had become legendary, but success often hides the scars that created it. 25 years earlier, Evelyn had been just another struggling young woman trying to survive. Her father had died when she was 19. Her mother followed 4 years later. Debt piled up. Bills multiplied. Friends disappeared. Opportunities seemed non existent. There were nights when she ate only crackers because that was all she could afford. There were mornings when she cried before work and smiled the moment she walked through the office doors. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. The world often celebrates winners but rarely watches the battles they fight before victory arrives. Evelyn fought hers alone. She worked 2 jobs, then 3. She studied business at night. She learned accounting from old library books. She attended seminars she couldn't afford. She listened, observed, learned. Slowly, opportunities began appearing. A small investment became a profitable venture. That venture became a company. That company became several. Year after year, her fortunes grew. Not because luck favored her, because discipline did. By the age of 35, she had purchased the mansion. The day she received the keys remained one of the happiest moments of her life. She remembered standing in the empty foyer, sunlight streaming through enormous windows, dust floating through the air, the silence almost sacred. She had walked from room to room in this belief, touching walls, opening doors, looking out windows, crying, not because of the luxury, because she had finally proven something to herself. She had survived. For years, the mansion was a sanctuary. Then Daniel entered her life. At first, he seemed different from everyone else. Most men she encountered were intimidated by her success. Daniel wasn't. At least that's what she believed. He was charming, confident, attentive. He remembered small details, asked thoughtful questions, made her laugh during a period when laughter had become rare. After years of prioritizing business over relationships, she found herself lowering her guard, slowly, carefully, then completely. The relationship moved quickly. Friends warned her. Some said Danielle seemed too interested in her lifestyle. Others questioned his ambitions. A few noticed things she didn't. But love has a way of silencing uncomfortable observations. Evelyn ignored the warnings. She chose trust. A year later, they were married. The wedding was beautiful, elegant, private, perfect. Or so it appeared. For the first few years, everything seemed normal. Daniel played the role of supportive husband well. He attended events, smiled for photographs, spoke proudly about his wife. People admired them together. But appearances can be deceiving, especially when envy hides beneath admiration. The change happened gradually, so gradually that Evelyn barely noticed. It began with small comments, tiny criticisms disguised as jokes, little observations disguised as concern. Whenever she achieved something significant, Daniel found a way to diminish it. When she acquired another company, he suggested the market had simply been favorable. When she won an industry award, he questioned the judging process. When magazines featured her success story, he mocked journalists for exaggeration. Individually, the comments seemed harmless. Together, they painted a darker picture, a picture Evelyn refused to see, because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging a painful truth. The man she loved wasn't celebrating her success, he was competing with it. As years passed, Daniel's resentment grew. His own career never flourished. Business ventures failed. Investments collapsed. Projects went nowhere. Meanwhile, Evelyn continued thriving. The gap between them widened, and with it, Daniel's bitterness. He began spending more money, taking greater risks, making questionable decisions. Whenever Evelyn expressed concern, arguments followed. The house that once felt peaceful became increasingly tense. Conversations became confrontations. Disagreements became battles. Silence became routine. Then came the discovery, the text message, the one thing Daniel never expected her to see. It appeared on his phone during dinner, a message from a woman named Vanessa. The words themselves weren't explicit, but they didn't need to be. The familiarity was enough. The timing was enough. The secrecy was enough. Everything changed after that. Investigations revealed more messages, more meetings, more lies. Months of deception unfolded piece by piece. When confronted, Daniel denied everything, then minimized it, then justified it. Finally, he blamed Evelyn. He claimed her success had driven him away. He claimed her work had destroyed the marriage. He claimed loneliness had forced his hand. Excuses, nothing more. The divorce followed shortly afterwards, and it was ugly, far uglier than anyone expected. Daniel demanded money, businesses, investments, properties, anything he could claim. The process dragged on for months. Attorneys exchanged accusations, financial records were examined, ownership histories were reviewed, every detail came under scrutiny. Throughout it all, one fact remained undeniable. The mansion belonged solely to Evelyn. She had purchased it years before meeting Daniel. The documentation was airtight, the evidence overwhelming. Eventually, the court finalized the divorce. Daniel lost his claims. The mansion remained Evelyn's. For the first time in years, she felt free. The healing process wasn't easy. Betrayal rarely is. But she moved forward, focused on her businesses, focused on herself, focused on rebuilding a life no longer defined by disappointment. Months passed. The pain gradually faded. Then rumors began. At first, they seemed harmless. Neighbors reported seeing Danielle near the mansion. A few mentioned unfamiliar vehicles parked outside. Others claimed they had spotted Vanessa entering the property. Evelyn dismissed the stories. People talk, people speculate, people exaggerate. There was no reason to take the gossip seriously. Then social media changed everything. One morning, her assistant entered the office carrying a tablet. Her expression was uneasy, concerned, almost nervous. "Evelyn," she said quietly, "I think you need to see this." The screen displayed a photograph. Danielle standing in front of the mansion gates, smiling. Vanessa beside him, smiling too. The caption read, "Sometimes life gives you exactly what you deserve." Evelyn stared at the image, confused, annoyed, but not alarmed, not yet. Then more posts appeared. Photographs inside the gardens, photographs near the fountain, photographs on the front steps, each one more provocative than the last. The comments exploded. People assumed ownership had changed. People assumed Danielle had won something during the divorce. People assumed Evelyn had lost. The rumor spread quickly. Still, none of it explained what was really happening. That explanation arrived 3 days later at exactly 2:17 in the afternoon. The call came from Robert, the mansion's longtime head of security, a man who had worked for Evelyn for over 12 years, reliable, calm, professional, the kind of person who never panicked, which made his voice all the more unsettling. "Ma'am," he said, "you need to come here immediately." Evelyn frowned. What happened? A pause followed, long enough to make her heart beat faster. Then Robert spoke again, and the words sent ice through her veins. "They've brought moving trucks." For several seconds, Evelyn couldn't respond. Moving trucks? The phrase didn't make sense. Not in relation to her mansion, not in relation to Daniel, not in relation to anything. "What do you mean?" Another pause. Then the answer. "They're moving furniture inside." Evelyn stood so quickly her chair nearly fell backward. Her pulse thundered. Her thoughts raced. Questions collided with one another. How? Why? Who authorized this? Robert's next words only deepened the mystery. "Daniel says he owns the property." Silence. Complete silence. For a moment, Evelyn wondered if she had misheard. Owns the property. Impossible. Legally impossible. Factually impossible. Logically impossible. Yet Robert sounded absolutely certain about what he had heard. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, she said. Then she hung up. The drive felt endless. Traffic lights seemed determined to delay her. Every red signal intensified her frustration. Every passing minute fed her anxiety. By the time she reached the hill leading to the mansion, her stomach was tied in knots. Then she saw them. 2 moving trucks, parked directly in front of the house. Workers carrying furniture through the entrance. Boxes stacked near the driveway. Vehicles lined along the curb, and standing in the middle of it all, Daniel, smiling. The same smile, that terrible smile. The smile of a man who believed victory was already his. Evelyn slowed a vehicle, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. Workers moved expensive furniture through her front doors as if they belonged there. Vanessa stood near the entrance directing people, laughing, pointing, acting as though she were mistress of the estate. Then Daniel noticed her. His eyes locked onto hers, and somehow his smile grew even wider. He began walking toward her car, unhurried, confident, certain, as though he had been expecting this moment all along, as though he wanted her to see, as though he had a secret he couldn't wait to reveal. And when Evelyn stepped out of the car, she immediately realized something was very wrong. Because Daniel wasn't acting like a man bluffing. He wasn't acting like a man taking a desperate gamble. He was acting like a man holding something dangerous, something powerful, something hidden, something that made him believe the mansion no longer belonged to her. And standing there beneath the afternoon sun, surrounded by strangers carrying furniture into her home, Evelyn felt a chilling realization settle deep in her chest. This wasn't an impulsive act. This had been planned for a very long time. And whatever Daniel thought he possessed was strong enough to make him challenge reality itself. The only question was whether it was real, or whether it was the lie that would ultimately destroy him. The rain returned that night, tapping softly against Evelyn's apartment windows, like a warning that refused to be ignored. She hadn't changed out of her clothes. She hadn't touched a tea. She just sat there, replaying the same impossible image over and over again. Daniel standing in her mansion, Vanessa giving orders, strangers moving furniture into rooms that held her entire history. It didn't feel real, and yet it was happening. By morning, Evelyn had already contacted her legal team. Papers were pulled, records were reviewed, systems were checked and double-checked. Everything was supposed to confirm what she already knew. She owned the mansion. There had been no transfer, no sale, no agreement. But then the confusion began. A document appeared in circulation, not in the official registry, but in copies, photographs, scanned versions, ownership transfer papers bearing her name, her signature, or something that looked like it. Her lawyer's voice was careful when he spoke. This doesn't match official records. That was the first crack. Across the city, Daniel and Vanessa settled into the mansion like conquerors who believed the war was already over. They hosted guests. They smiled for cameras. They called it a new beginning. But beneath the surface, something else was happening. Pressure, legal pressure. Quiet at first, then growing. Because Evelyn wasn't emotional in her response. She was methodical. And methodical people are dangerous when they stop asking questions and start collecting proof. Days later, an unexpected name surfaced. Claire, Vanessa's former friend. She didn't want revenge. She wanted distance, but she gave testimony anyway about conversations, about plans, about a sure thing that Vanessa had spoken of long before the mansion incident. A plan that didn't feel spontaneous, a plan that felt prepared, carefully prepared. Then came the forensic review, and everything changed. The signature on the transfer document was wrong, not obviously, not at first glance, but under analysis, it didn't hold. Digital manipulation, layered alteration, a constructed lie. For the first time, Evelyn didn't feel confusion. She felt something sharper, clarity, and somewhere in the mansion, Daniel stopped smiling as often because people who fake ownership always fear one thing more than anything else, being asked to prove it. And soon proof was exactly what was coming. The final review took place inside the mansion itself, not in court, not in offices, but in the place where the lie had been built. Daniel stood near the entrance, trying to hold on to confidence that no longer fit him. Vanessa stayed close, but not too close. The distance between them had already begun. Evelyn arrived last, calm, silent, ready. Security personnel brought out the original ownership files first. Thick folders, official seals, years of documentation. Then came the confirmation. Evelyn had purchased the mansion long before Daniel ever entered her life. There was no gap, no ambiguity, no loophole, just truth. But the final blow wasn't paperwork. It was security logs. Unauthorized access attempts, a trail of entries, a name, Daniel Hart. The room shifted instantly. Then came footage. Daniel speaking with the consultant. Daniel accessing restricted areas. Daniel moving through administrative records he was never meant to see. Vanessa turned toward him slowly. You said this was legal. Daniel didn't answer because there was nothing left that could defend him. The last document was placed on the table. The original unaltered acquisition file. Unchanged, undeniable, final. Silence followed. Then the ruling, ownership reaffirmed, fraud confirmed, eviction ordered. Daniel's world didn't explode. It collapsed quietly. The kind of collapse that happens when there is nothing left to argue against reality. Days later, the trucks returned again. But this time, no one smiled. No one celebrated. No one believed the story anymore. Daniel stood at the gates for a long time before leaving. Vanessa never looked back, and Evelyn watched from the steps, not with triumph, but with stillness, because in the end, she didn't win the mansion. She simply took back what was never lost, and truth, once revealed, never needs to raise its voice